What's up everyone, a bit of a different video today. Today I want to talk about gem rates in Pokemon using numbers from PSA. I'm looking at PSA because I believe PSA gives us the best sample size. Most cards are graded under PSA, so when I'm doing these kinds of videos I always use PSA. I had myself thinking about gem rates and how important they are in terms of how it affects the card's value potentially. And so obviously I went back to the first edition Charizard, the holy grail in Pokemon, and looked at the gem rate here. So 125 have been graded a 10 out of 5,119 copies. So it's about a 2.5% chance. Obviously, this doesn't really account for if you pull it pack fresh. A lot of these Charizards were graded after they were played a bunch, so that's why you see a lot of copies in the mid grades here. When I look at modern later, I'm going to just assume gem rate means pack fresh. What are the odds of getting a 10 when you pull a card fresh out of a pack? These older cards, you're not pulling this card out of a pack, right? These 10s that were graded a long time ago, and more probably won't pop up. And so what I did was I compared the first edition Charizard to other Charizard, and caught my eye that some other Charizards have much lower gem rates than the first edition Charizard, and they're much more affordable. And so that had me wonder, how much does this actually matter in Pokemon? This card has a 2.5% gem rate, but then if we look at the shadowless just the shadowless Charizard, 58 have been graded a 10. So right off the bat, less copies graded a 10 for the shadowless Charizard, and 12,376 have been graded in general with PSA. That gives us a 0.4% chance. Or not chance, that gives us a 0.4% gem rate, meaning out of all the copies graded, only 58 are PSA 10s. I'm not sure if this card's just much more difficult to grade. Clearly more of them in the world, by more than double if we just go off PSA, assuming they're all graded. I know they're not all graded, but at this point a lot of them are graded. We can even go a step further and look at the base set 2 Charizard. This card, when you see it in public, I personally have seen so many of these in public at card shows that it doesn't even catch my eye at this point. It's just an ordinary card. You see it everywhere. There's a lot of them out there. There are 70 PSA 10s in the world. Almost 20,000 copies have been graded with PSA. The gap just keeps getting bigger and bigger, it seems. And the difference in price follows that same, curve or slope. It's so interesting to see that this card is much more difficult to grade a PSA 10 than the first edition Charizard and Shadowless. I'll look at the gem rate here. 0.35% chance, or sorry, I keep saying chance. 0.35% of these are graded a PSA 10 amongst the ones that are graded with PSA. Base set 2 Charizard is much more affordable than the Shadowless and the first edition, this being the most expensive and having the highest gem rate each other. And I know this is the card we all remember, but this is the same artwork. The only thing that's different is this first edition stamp, and there's less of them in the world. But I'm not trying to argue that these should be more valuable. It's just interesting to look at because we can take it to modern later and see how that maybe affects modern cards. Charizard from Expedition, 45 PSA 10s in the world, 2,900 graded. Again, very, very low pop. Crystal Guardians Charizard, 80 PSA 10s, 4,500 graded. 52 10s, 2,300 graded for the reverse foil of the Crystal Guardians. And I'm going to lastly look at Gold Star Charizard. I believe this card to be a better card than the first edition Charizard, but that's because I like Gold Stars more than first edition cards. It's still very expensive, obviously. All of these are very expensive, but it seems to be the gem rate doesn't affect PSA 10 evaluations that dramatically. At the end of the day, it turns out that people buy nostalgia, and this hobby hasn't reached a point where cards like this are deemed to be more valuable because there's less 10s in the world, which is what everybody goes for. Back to the Gold Star Charizard, 98 10s in the world, 4,100 graded with PSA, almost 4,200. Another, low gem rate, lower pop PSA 10 than the first edition Charizard. But then again, this card still holds the gigantic jump in value due to nostalgia, and that's what I believe it to be for these cards. I'm now going to look at the Umbreons, 2 modern grails, very good to compare side by side. This card's much newer, so we don't have the best data for this card yet because I'm assuming maybe 30,000 more of these are going to get graded because the set's relatively new. A lot of it's kept sealed. Over time, people are going to open it. A lot of these are going to pop up. Same with the VMAX. But recently, this Umbreon EX from Prismatic sold for, we'll see here, much more than the VMAX alternative. alternative. $6,300, $6,300, 62, 62, all within the last month, October, in the 6,000s Canadian. The VMAX still floating around between $4,500 to $5,500. So it still hasn't broke that $6,000 Canadian price point. I mean, it probably will. At this point, like, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a $10,000 card one day, which is crazy to say, but it's just the state we're in right now. And, you know, things might change in the future, but at this current moment, this card's much more affordable, but this makes sense for what it is. The Prismatic Umbreon has a gem rate of 32%, which is pretty low for modern. I'm not saying the gem rate's going to jump up, but the number of graded copies will jump up, meaning if this gem rate stays the same, then we're going to have more PSA 9s and less PSA 10s, obviously. Looking at the Umbreon VMAX, 1,800, almost 19,000 copies graded a 10, 26,531 graded overall with PSA. This card sells for $4,500 Canadian. It has a gem rate of 71%, so almost double. I don't know if that's why this Prismatic Umbreon is selling for more. It is a newer card. It's less nostalgic, I think, than the VMAX. The VMAX was when Pokemon really started to take off again. Does nostalgia, is it going to play a factor in the future when evaluating these cards? Like, this card's always going to be more nostalgic, but, you know, debatably, the artworks are both amazing. I personally like this artwork. I'm not sure if I like the rainbow borders. I personally like this artwork more. I don't know if nostalgia is going to carry this card past the Prismatic Umbreon, or if pop reports will actually affect the price. So that's it for today. Let me know what you think. Let me know what cards you guys want me to look at. It's a lot of fun hearing what everybody's into, so let me know in the comments, what do you think of the randomness that has been seen through looking at these gem rates and pop reports of these older cards versus some of these newer cards. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.